Hey, good evening. The monthly meeting of the San Carlos Estates Water Control District is called to order at 6:08.
6:05.
6:05 on May 15th, 2023, and a quorum is present. Thank you all for coming. Roll call. I have Vice Chair Jennifer Panazzo, Supervisor John Slucci, Secretary Chris Lawson, Audrey Medeiros, Manager, Attorney Richard Pringle, and Engineer Rod Edinfield, along with 6 landowners and guests. The meeting agenda has been distributed in your board packet. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Nope. Okay. Engineer report.
Oh,
Yes. You're on.
move that later, so my ducks are
Thank you.
just on the update on the normal items. We currently have 17 open permits that are in various stages. That number is going to increase, and I'll explain that in just a moment. One new permit since the last meeting. We've finalized or closed out 2 permits. We have another half dozen or so that are in the substantial completion, waiting on final CO request. And we've conducted at least 12 inspections. Also during the period, we've met with FEMA 3 separate occasions, still talking about post-DM and recovery funds. Still working through that process. We did conduct an MS4 site inspection with representatives from the FDEP in Tallahassee and a local Lee County NPDES permit coordinator. The MS4, that's the municipally separate storm sewer system. That's an annual report. When you hear us talk about NPDES, it's tied to the MS4 permit. Those inspections are mandatory every cycle. We probably won't have to do another one for several years now. But in any event, we're still waiting for comments back from the DEP on that. So based on the day of our meeting, didn't have Audrey joined us. She had a lot of fun. We did take a tour of pretty much the entire district, at least relative to the stormwater issues, and we had some good comments, good feedback. So we're looking for a good report out of Tallahassee. We also had a meeting with Bonita Springs, the assistant town manager, last week, and that was with regards to a program known as Resilience League. The state is set aside through the federal government, has set aside a cache of money that communities and the Lee County can pursue. The money's actually coming out of HUD, so it's primarily tied to urban housing and affordable housing. It's about $1.1 billion that they have in this bucket of funds that may be available. I say may be because, of course, any federal dollars have strings attached. With respect to the Resilience League program, Lee County has set up their process for dealing with with those funds and identifying through public outreach and community outreach efforts where the public feels like those monies need to be spent. It's a rather involved process. You can look at it online. There's a little bit of information if you're really curious and want to do a deep dive into it. But the long and the short of it is there's about $1.1 billion, which about 70% of that will be directly related to housing and other related infrastructure, affordable housing and related infrastructure, leaving about somewhere between $300 and $400 million for other projects. And we do have a couple of projects that we've been working with FEMA on that should FEMA not fund them, or if the HMGP should not fund them, we're still going to put them into try to get them on the list for the Resilience League and perhaps get funding, primarily as it relates to land acquisition and preservation. So we're working with that and following up on that. We have a meeting next week. Just an MS4 routine quarterly meeting that we'll get an update from the state on where a number of different things are. And so it's been a busy month. And that's the report for the moment. Unless there are any questions?
The $1 billion is state and federal, or just
That's
federal?
coming through HUD, through the state.
HUD, so the feds fund the state, the state then, they're gonna go through the qualification. Have they ever done that before, that particular type of program?
I'm not familiar with it.
No, I've never heard of that
It's an
either.
unusual,
Yeah,
I'm not sure what the origins of it or why they opted to go in that fashion, but it will come through feds, through the state, down to Lee County. And so the money's actually going to reside in the coffers in Lee County, and then Lee County will decide where to dole it out, according to the
the
guidelines
full
for
billion.
1.1 billion.
So what does that mean for us? What is that gonna do for us?
I don't know that it means anything yet.
I mean, are we looking at resurfacing the roads or redoing our swells or canals or what projects do you have going that you need the funding for?
At this point, probably, without getting into a whole lot of detail, the program is set up on Lee County. Ruane is our chairman. Each of the local governmental entities have a representative on their committee. That committee is broken out into 6 or 7 different, they call them branches, public outreach, infrastructure, environmental resources, utilities, housing, of course.
Okay, so
Can they-
housing, we're not building any houses, right?
Right.
Okay, are we getting anybody's land? Are we acquisitioning some land?
That was a project that we've got working through the Lee County HMGP Hazard Mitigation Grant Program for some land acquisition on some of these lots that are heavily jurisdictional, the heavy wetland lands. Just one of the big issues we've identified with the district is we very much liken it to being a Model T trying to live in an electric vehicle world. We've got a great drainage system. We had a great drainage system in '69. Since that time, other lands have started to drain into us through approvals from state and other governments. So our drainage system is a little less adequate for our needs because of these off-site waters coming in. In the original drainage plan, there really were no meters or structures to hold water back. It just hit the canal and left, went right out to Spring Creek and out to Estero Bay. Current era, we're required to provide water quality treatment, which requires storage areas, which requires real estate. So the thought has been is some of these lands deep within certain parts of the district that are heavily jurisdictional, where the landowner would have to spend a great deal of money to mitigate for the impact of that wetland. It may be more cost effective for them to sell that land to the district and let the district conserve it as to provide the stormwater storage that it currently provides. And so these are concepts that we're trying to move through. Of course, the biggest issue with that is just funding. It's not a budgeted item. It's more of one, if money becomes available, then that may be a project that the district might be able to pursue. Other items are infrastructure. We haven't quite got a lot of detail from the committee on what type of infrastructure would qualify through that. Like I said, we just had this meeting last week with a representative who brought the project to us. And so we're trying to dig in a little bit and see what actually, if there's money there that we can qualify for. So we're not certain just yet what we could do with the money if we were even able to get the money. So it's more of looking to see if the money's available at this point.
So the $1 billion of HUD money has to be related to affordable housing or no?
70% of it will have to be spent directly and indirectly on housing.
And
And
not the 70, not the 30 that we would go after.
pardon?
Not the amount, not the dollars that we would go after though.
No, I didn't anticipate that we would be in pursuit of that 70%. I don't know where we would do that at. And I don't know
Because
what
St.
that-
Carlos Estates and affordable housing don't seem to be a match right now.
It's my understanding that there are actually areas within Lee County that have a designation that you have to have in order to pursue those dollars, and we don't have any of those designations within or near the district. So that 70% is pretty much off the table, leaving the $300 to $400 million that might be available to some. Part of it might be available to us.
So if you acquire land, would you make any changes to the land engineering wise, or would you just let it?
We leave it just as it is, because the cost of changing it is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
You know, certainly to do any improvements on it. From a water resources standpoint, people would suggest maybe that you take the wetlands out and dig a lake. Well, the cost of that impact is far, far greater than the value of the land. It's better just to leave it as is, perhaps remove the exotics and non-natives, and just let it sit there and soak up water, like it always has. But yeah, it's about.
And this is all free money, right?
Nothing's free. Oh my God.
If I said free money, please strike that from the record.
It's an opportunity.
I don't know enough to tell you whether or not there's a cost share that goes, a matching that goes with it. We just, like I said, it was just brought to us last week. So as we know more, we'll share more.
Is this, I'm trying to picture where all this money's flowing. So it comes into St. Carlos Estate. The water's coming into St. Carlos Estate without money. And then we get their money to offset the money that's not coming in with the water from the surrounding. It's just,
Now you've got me confused.
well, so you address, so for example, preferred materials is dumping water into our canal and not giving us money, right? So then we get money from this HUD thing to counteract that. But it still doesn't help me if my taxes are still the same. I still think we need to address the water coming in without the dollars. That's my opinion.
You move on.
Still on the table.
Move on.
Thank you.
All right, so the chair's report, supervisor and chair president Jim Racker is out this evening for shoulder surgery. So at this time, Mr. Pringle, would this be the point where Mr. Sushi would do the website description, since it's not on the agenda?
The website description?
The website presentation,
We did
Well,
that
there's
last
no
month.
presentation, I'll give you an update.
an update, so I'd like to.
So as of today, the old website's contents have been moved over to what you call a test site or a sandbox environment, which is what the new website will basically look like, but then Audrey and I have to go in and double check, edit, make sure the spelling, Chris will have to look at it as well, she's seen the site more than any of us, populate things that we believe are more relevant to go on the website that have not been in the old website. And once all that's done, it's up to us. We have up to 90 days to then make it go publish live. It's not going to take 90 days. I think we'll be done by the end of this month or early June. So that's where we're at on that. An update that is related to that is to address one of the issues in the audit report. There is a company that I just was talking with today is ranked #1 in PC Magazine. Did a little research on them as well. They provide a certain dollar per month cloud-based emails. That, and Chris, this is a question for you. Do we own? I assume we own the domain SKU, right?
We own through Earthlink, scewcd.org. So I wasn't sure if you were able to get Streamline to migrate that over from
Well, they must
Earthlink.
have, because they've got a test box.
Okay, but is it
We'll send
secwcd.org?
It says that, and then it says, I can't remember that. It says something else .org.
All right, so
I think it says streamline.org. So it's skewed.streamline.
all right, then that is not our domain.
Okay, well then, send me an email, please, of the exact domain with Earthlink information so I can make sure they port it over.
Okay.
If that's what we're doing, to make sure that they can follow.
If that's what you want. I mean, the domain just renewed. Once we get those other emails, then I will cancel the email service. And I don't know if we will need to continue to maintain the domain with Earthlink.
Well, that's
If
just it. That's just it. If we own the domain,
Earth,
like, is it registered with like?
Earthlink has the domain name. We have it with Earthlink.
then
We
don't own
haven't
the
bought or registered that domain
domain. We have
with.
or have not. So we need to do that. That should have been done decades ago. We need.
I wasn't around decades ago, so I don't know what they do when they started that. All I know is that we have a domain name with Earthlink, secwcd.org. That is the domain name.
All right.
And it should be able to be ported or pointed to
Yeah,
Streamline.
you pointed. Yes, they can. I already know what they will do with that. But the question is, if we don't own it, they can't then switch the domain to Streamline and drop.
That you're over my head now.
Don't you own orgs.orgs?
So Streamline does.
Okay.
I'm asking if we own it. I'm hearing that we have the rights through Earthlink. But there's different companies out there like Domain. They're like international organizations. I have to go back and look at them. Where you do a research, say, is this name available?
Right.
And if it is, then you buy it.
Right.
And it's $100 a year, $200 a year, then you own it. So now I'm gonna.
We're not.
Are we paying for it?
We're paying $12 a year for the Earthlink domain.
So then,
It's not a domain. We're paying for the rights for Earthlink to present that. That's because it costs a lot more than $12. It might be $100, $200 for a 5-year period that's renewing every 5 years. So I'm going to do some research on that. Okay. Now go back to the emails. This company had a third-party company has a cloud-based email system which we can use with our domain name. So it could be sally.smith@skewed.org or whatever we have for the domain. And then if Sally leaves after 3 years not on the board anymore, and you have Bill Brown, we own the license to the email. You just say, okay, Sally Smith now is Bill.Brown. And then they have an email for 3 years. And they also give us a voice over IP phone, so we can get rid of CenturyLink.
right.
I was told they didn't offer VoIP.
Not Streamline, another company.
Yeah, I was gonna say Streamline
Yeah,
doesn't
It's
offer
called
VoIP.
Intermedia. So they have a phone which gives you a free email. So we can have an info@skewed.org, like a contact email that goes with the voicemail. And the voicemail you can have standards, whereas obviously messages, we could have greetings. And then we could also go
So
into
we
the
need
system.
phone anymore.
Exactly. So we can then go in and have the calls forwarded to Audrey or one of the supervisors, several people, plus one, hit one for supervisor so-and-so, 2, hit 3 for the manager, whatever. So if we did 5 emails and a voice over IP, which comes in an email, that gives us 6 emails. It's $8 per email, so 5 times 8 is 40. One voicemail plus an email is 32, is $72. And I just signed a check today for $82.48 or $38 for CenturyLink. So we're saving money and having far more efficiencies, and then get out of having our personal emails involved with the organization. Then anyway, in the future we'll also have, and they also have cloud storage for all the emails and the attachments.
That's good.
So working on that, and that is simply, and then they would just need, it's a month-to-month fee, and they want either a debit or credit card to maintain that, the company, for the emails and the voicemail.
Are you talking about the VoIP or are you talking about
Intermedia.
Intermedia, the VoIP?
If we get the new emails and the voice over IP, basically digital phone, then we need a credit card, debit card that goes to they charge monthly.
Well, that can be put on the PC card
That's fine,
system.
whatever, 'cause it's like a debit card, doesn't matter, yep.
Mhm.
So, working on that, trying to get how quickly that can be set up.
So as soon as you have it then set up, then are you going to try and pull the 4954699 number over to it?
I asked about porting it, so we own that, right?
Well, that's the phone number we have with CenturyLink.
Yeah, that should be able to port over, yes. Because I asked them that.
All right, so we need to coordinate all that so that we stop the CenturyLink when you do that.
Yeah, but I think it's gonna take a few weeks.
I'm just saying we'll have to coordinate.
So, Earthlink, and then, Chris, you'll send me the info on that, please?
Oh, no, I'll send you what little I have. Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so that's the update on the website and any future activities, and it's progressing very well.
Thank you.
Do we need to add that to the agenda? Well, he made some we made some decisions, did you not? In the course of your conversation, which was that you want to transition from CenturyLink to intermediary VoIP system and the emails and
Yes, as soon as I
so
find
that-
out
yeah,
the
there was
specific
action.
details.
And do you want to make that decision now or at the next board meeting? Are you still investigating and you're going to bring
The
it
last
back?
board meeting, we were authorized to
Proceed
proceed
completely?
completely, that's what I'm doing,
Okay.
that was with Streamline,
right?
not the VoIP.
But I also said I'm gonna try to find them streamlined.
Right.
They have emails and voice over IP, and they do not.
And they do not, and so you
there's
found
a
another
third-party
resource.
company that does that. It's the same concept. Third-party emails, so they're .org emails and a cheaper version for the phone.
In the abundance of caution, so that you can take action to set all that, so the district can take action to set all that up with with a third-party provider, I would ask that you add the item to the agenda for the board to approve.
For the emails and the phone.
Yes, sir, for the
Sure.
emails and the phone to be added through the third party.
The
That's
VoIP,
in the new website, through the third party.
yeah, the VoIP was not part of the meeting last month. That was an afterthought when you saw the phone
Okay,
bill.
let's add it for next month's agenda. It's gonna take me that long.
Okay,
Get straight
so
into
next
the program
month,
Anyway.
okay, so we don't need to amend the agenda today, just add it to next month's agenda. Okay, yes, sir, good.
So what's the new domain name for the new website?
Well, it sounds like I'm gonna have to figure that out. Because I thought we own that, but it doesn't sound like we own it, the Earthlink. We're renting it.
Well, you can buy that domain from any 100 different.
Well, maybe no one's ever thought of the domain and we'll just go buy it ourselves.
Right.
I don't know.
They moved away from Earthlink back in 2012-13 when they went and got a new Google website. So the Earthlink matter kind of has just been out there. They didn't get rid of it because there was a website tied to it that everybody knew about and was pointing to our current website, although you couldn't access any data on it, and there was an email tied to it. So it's just been kind of there.
Well, here's a question before we get off this subject regarding the website. What entities outside of St. Carlos State's Water District utilize our website for communications? Third-party vendors? Is there any government entities?
I would say there's probably third-party government because our website's the only place to get the information for the driveway permits and for contractors. So I would say yes, there are third parties that do access our website. There are residents that access our website.
But how do they know to access our website? How do we tell them? Mr. Smith is a paving contractor, just moved to Bonita Springs, never done work.
He picks up the phone, and if he doesn't know, he calls the district line and he says, I'm so-and-so, I'm doing this. I tell him, you need to go to the website. There's the application
How
there.
does he know to get that number to call the district line? He knows nothing.
They make Google.
Google?
Or the resident tells him. Or he looks at a tax bill. I don't ask him how he gets the number.
Okay,
Information.
the point I'm trying to make is we have about 650 people here, families. and a few local and regional people that we can inform in advance. For the next 3 months, the old website is being transitioned over, and it's going to be now this new website. We just educate everybody.
Yeah,
Eventually drop
we've been
the old-
trying. Yeah, we've been trying to educate everybody to the new website for the last 2 years, because everybody had the old website address stuck in their brains, and then they were upset because they couldn't open anything on the old website. And so we've been, since the mailing in 21 with the debacle on the voting, we talked about the new website address there. We continued it on throughout the year. We have had signs out that has had the new address out in the community. The second mailing for last year's landowner had the new email website address on it. So we've been constantly reinforcing that new website. So now that we're going to a different one, we have to start that whole process and re-education again. But if you Google, chances are, and I don't know because I haven't Googled SE San Carlos Estates. It used to be that it would come up, the old website would come up, not the new one. But I don't know if that's changed as time has gone by because I haven't Googled it. Anybody want to Google it?
Just Google it real fast.
Just Google it.
We're using our if I stop mine, I'll lose the recording. So,
Do you want me to go on with the treasurer's report now?
Yes.
Yes, at this time.
Okay,
Sure.
all right.
Okay, Chris.
So, we had some quick last minute bills, so some of the information in your website that I gave you yesterday is a little bit different, but for the public's purposes, at the end of April, our bank accounts, phase 1 and general maintenance, totaled $535,773. Our reserve funds totaled $966,617, so that we had a total funds balance on hand of $1,502,392. That was at the end of April. So I'm going to go for the board members. If you'll look at the variance report, this one. We received additional tax revenues supposedly today in the bank account. So our CIP revenues right now are at $541,703, which means we still have about $20,622 outstanding. So we're at 96% collected. Our general maintenance revenue, we have collected $569,197. We have $26,455 still remaining outstanding. So we are at 96% collected. We have totally received in revenue $1,162,739 since October 1 through May 31st, or through May 15th. As far as our expenses, we have spent $732,227 in expenses. Of that, $208,097 are totally attributable to Hurricane Ian. Okay, so that's about a third of what we've spent, roughly. The things that are out of whack, the things that are 10% off our budget in the way of expenses, we had over, our commissions on the CIP is 28% off for $496 under collected, annualized. Our gate, we have only spent $383 of the $2,000 we estimated, and that's because we bought a new gate. We have our legal expenses are about $13,490 under budget annualized, so we're at 46% under budget there. Our engineering costs are actually, read my lines here. We've spent I can't see my lines. I'm sorry, I can't see.
And do you have any addresses?
Our drainage. Let's go to drainage. We've only spent $3,935 in drainage. We budgeted $134,800. We're $85,932 under budget. The reason we're under budget is because we had planned a number of drainage projects that we have not done because of Hurricane Ian. Engineering cost is right on target. We're at $58,700 for the year to date. And I think everything else is pretty good. The only other thing that I would say as far as income that's really out of budget is the bank interest. We have collected $9,705 more annualized than we expected. So we're at 111% in bank interest, and that is because of what the Federal Reserve has done and where their economy is and where bank interest rates are. The Florida Prime account, which we just moved $175,000 over last month, is earning way over 4, close to 5% in interest, and that's why we moved that money so that we would generate more income there. And so we are taking advantage of what we can to earn that interest. Northern Trust is paying still less than 1%. So, but we still have $16,000 there, and we don't want to close that account.
300 and something thousand you spent on drainage. What exactly did you buy with that?
No, $3,935.
Only 3,000.
Yeah, and most of that has to do with the biologist for the filter pond. There was some, I don't know if we had any fence repairs, Mike, before the hurricane. That would fall under drainage.
Before the hurricane.
Yeah, I think it's mostly the ecologist.
So what are the projects that are on hold that?
For the drainage, we had planned to do. We had put in $50,000 in drainage to work on the perimeter roads and to do some work on the berms in the perimeter roads. That hasn't been done because of the hurricane. And the same way with the roads, we had planned extra budget monies for the roads to do some repaving projects here and there throughout the community. We haven't done those either. Because of Hurricane Ian and the attempts to put some of those, get some of those dollars from FEMA and or that HGMP, is that right? Is that the right anagram? So some of the grant monies, we're trying to use that for the road repairs instead of our dollars.
It's almost 9 months now that Ian didn't do nearly as much damage as the Irma did.
It did actually. We've spent about as much money, if I'm not mistaken. I think how much was Irma spent? Because I wasn't here. Was it $250 or?
Over 200,000 Irma we've spent what, 180, 200?
No, we've spent.
About the same.
Yeah, but it's about the same. So we should see some of those dollars start to come in next year probably at the earliest, which is what happened with Irma. So we used the money. We took the money out of the reserve funds, $200,000 at the beginning of October, to pay for the expenses. So we are current. We don't owe anybody any money. A lot of that's going to come back to us because most of it had to do with was in the first 60 days and had to do with the cleanup of the canals, and that was at 100%. Correct, Ron?
Yes, ma'am.
That was at 100%.
Before December 7th.
Yeah, so most of that hopefully will come all back to us.
So a reasonable person might say, we're collecting all this money and we got $1.5 million in the bank, maybe we're taxing too much?
We aren't there yet. We aren't there yet to that decision making because they're working on those projects. And if in fact they do come up with that, what Jim has tentatively stated to be a big round number, ballpark number. We don't know what it stands for, so don't hold it to anybody. But he's looking at about $2 million in grants. And if we have a 25% matching on that $2 million in grants, that's $500,000. Now, do we have that $5,000 today that we can stroke that check if we got that $2 million, that $1.5 million? Yes, we've got the money to do that with. So, in terms of next year's budget planning, which will be next month's meeting, month after that's meeting. John, I sent an email out to the supervisors this month asking about what projects, what are you foreseeing for the next year? Let me know. I have some information and reports that I put together that I was going to hand out during the supervisor discussion so that they can be looking at that during the next 2 months so that when we start to talk about the budget, we can make a decision as to what do we need to look ahead for. So maybe, we don't know yet, but those are going to be the conversations over the next 2 months because we have to approve the budget in August. So if you have questions about that, if you have interest about that, I would highly recommend that you come to those meetings and listen to what the board members are talking about. John has a lot of ideas for projects. I don't know how all this interrelates with the grant monies and the work that Jim and Ron are doing with the state and the federal government, so that maybe some of these dollars that we have typically planned on may not and used for the canal cleaning and the trimming of the trees and the herbicides. Maybe we don't need a budget for that next year because we have this other big project. But on the other hand, if we're looking ahead down the road and we know that we've got paving projects that we need to think about, maybe we don't want to shorten up our budget too much because we've got those other projects that are 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So it's up to the board. I encourage your involvement. I encourage your participation. And
Well, I would just add that we got to keep our wits about us when we see $2 million hanging in front of us. As you said, it's not free. It's
well,
$500,000.
of that $2 million, remember, $535,000 is in our current budget. We have of that $287,000 in the CIP budget. I have another loan payment that I have to make in August. That loan payment in August is $229,000. I would really like to make a principal down payment, pay that down a little bit if I get another $12,000 in tax revenues, so that going into next year I don't have to assess so much for this final CIP payment. So if I can pay that down and only have a balance going into the CIP of $311,000, that's going to be my goal, so that we don't have to collect so much on the CIP, because next year is our last CIP. Of the other $248,000, that's our general maintenance. We spend about $30,000 a month in everyday expenses. I've still got 8 months. What is this, May? I have 7 months left of the year at $30,000. If I don't get any more tax dollars, I have just enough to get me to year end. Now, we have reserve funds at Florida Prime per our requirements by the auditor for reserve funds for those last 3 months of the year. If I have to draw into them, we have the ability to do that. But right now, as we sit, should have plenty of money to ride through the end of the year without touching those reserve funds. So when you say $1.5 million or $2 million, we don't have $2 million. What we have is $1 million sitting in reserve funds. And of that, we might need $500,000. You don't want to take your reserve funds too low.
Is there anything budgeted for cleaning out the sediment from the swales and the ditches that have built up over 20 years?
That's
All our
part.
culverts are down below.
That's part of the projects that they're working on with the FEMA and the federal government. That's part of that $2 million big project.
17 days away from hurricane season, so we're going to fiddle around with them.
That's right now my understanding from what Jim said last month. That
FEMA doesn't move very fast, like the auditor said, 10 years. Some of the
yeah,
customers
he's
don't
gonna.
get any money out.
What Jim said last month was that he was going to do projects as they became necessary and as they became critical to the water system and to the infrastructure system. But he wasn't going to spend more money than he had to because of the work they're doing right now. So
And what he set up, he's meeting them at least 4 times a month right now.
What's that?
Jim's meeting with the FEMA 4 times a month already, once a week for several hours on a Thursday. So he's on ahead of that project.
okay.
I'm sorry, so just the details, so you said there's $58,000 for the engineering, so do the permit fees go through,
That is not, that doesn't include any permit fees.
okay, so that's a separate.
What we can't offset the legal fees with income coming in, we have to separate.
Engineering.
Yeah, we cannot intermingle receipts with expenses. So for the use and connection fees, we've received $6,800 this year for use and connection. We budgeted $9,000. The engineering cost is right now $153,290. So a lot of what we had was carry forward from prior years' driveway culverts permits were still open that he's spending money this year taking care of from other years' projects.
Okay, the other quick thing, the legal fees, we're under by $13,490, is that, we haven't gotten any invoices?
I got invoices in today for November and January. I don't have invoices for February, March, April, or May.
Like this.
Good?
Are you done?
Okay.
Okay, so the financial report will be filed for financial reconciliation? For financial reconciliation? Correct, Mr. Riddle?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, and moving on to the attorney's report.
Yes, ma'am. Just need the record to reflect, the meeting record to reflect that Supervisor Bradford's absence is an excused absence. Item number 2, I'm continuing to have discussions with Mr. Gallagher's lawyer. I have received a draft, first draft settlement proposal from him, and I will be working on that. And then the third item is, as previously discussed, if we could make sure to add, and I believe the definition or the phrase would be district website to the June board meeting agenda, then that would give Supervisor Salucci an opportunity to get approval from the board of any activities that you need if we use that broad title, district website. So if we could do that, I would appreciate it. That's my report.
Okay,
Okay, so include in that the VoIP is a separate item, so I'll include district website and VoIP
Emails and voice over
Yeah.
IP.
It'll all be
under one of that thing.
Yes, ma'am. Under the big, broad title of district website, and then all of those other subparts can be brought in as necessary.
all right, any questions? And the number,
Yeah, I got a question. What is this Gallagher? Are we being sued by Mr. Gallagher or
Not yet.
for what?
Related to his access. What?
Related to his assets?
access, access to his property.
Yes, sir. ACC. Yes, sir. Access. Yeah.
All
And that's
right.
my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Amendments for the meeting agenda, I was gonna suggest that we add a line item for our manager's report.
Sure.
So do I make a motion for that?
Make a motion to
Well, let's if you want to amend the agenda, then yes, a motion to amend the agenda, but then that becomes item F, 9F, as a business agenda item if you're going to take action on that. And you need to take action on it if you're going to add it because your agenda is established by your manual that was recently adopted. And so you'll ultimately need to amend the manual to add that item.
Okay.
So
Will
do
be
we
the way
need
to
to
do
make a motion to amend the manual so that after number 6, attorney's report, there's then manager's report before we have public input.
Or before.
Or before, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, we could have treasurer, or even after engineering, because engineering and manager are working in conjunction.
Yeah.
So I make a motion, we amend the agenda manual for next.
No, you're adding it to this month's agenda.
Adding this month's agenda to
Yes.
amend it.
So, yes, sir. So item 9F, you want to add meeting agenda
For manager's report.
amendment
Manager report.
to add manager's report.
So
Yep.
a motion to add managers.
John's
report to
made a
the
motion.
agenda.
Yep. So there is a
I
motion.
made the
Yes, ma'am.
motion.
Okay.
Someone second it, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that'll be added as item 9F.
Line up.
Okay,
Okay.
good idea.
Public input on business agenda. Good. All right, moving on. Business agenda items, meeting minutes approval. Let's make a motion for, did you have a question?
Yeah, I got something. What's going on with that Bonita bill where the guy ripped up part of the berm?
It's
and
not an agenda
got,
item. It's not an
roofing
agenda item.
materials out through all the road. What's going on with that?
Hey, John, that's not an agenda item, so can you hold your thought until we come into general public input?
Number 10.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
That's
too
okay.
far ahead.
Yep, thank
Wish we were there.
Okay, so business agenda items, a motion for meeting minutes approval from 4/17/2023.
I don't have a problem with minutes. Make a motion?
Motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve April 17th minutes from the board.
you. Okay,
Oh,
I will make one quick question.
Sure.
okay.
In your packet here, that is not in your packet that you received, is the inventory of surplus items that I received today. I will finalize it to have the page number and the footer on the bottom, but I received that today, so it's been added to the minutes that you have in your hand. It's been added to the minutes that the public has available to them, and it will be included in the minutes that are
And this is in
posted.
the event we acquire any assets in the future.
No. This, in last month's meeting, Jim declared certain items as surplus
Oh, yeah,
inventory,
yeah.
and Ron,
Signs, used signs,
Yeah.
things like that.
and Mr. Pringle said that the inventory had to be made part of the minutes, and I didn't get the inventory until this morning, so they have been added to the minutes. So that was not part of your packet over the weekend.
Madam Chair, just to make sure that we've disclosed what those surplus items are, could you just, how long is the list?
No.
Okay.
2 lift master traffic control gates with 2 arms, 1 arm per gate, 7 signposts, 11 stop signs, 3 traffic speed signs, and 8 street signs.
So those that exhibit will be attached to the board meeting minutes, just so everybody.
All right, do you want me to say Exhibit A or Exhibit B, Exhibit A? Or do I need to do that?
You don't even need to do that.
Curious question, where is all of these assets being housed right now?
I have some of them, and Jim has the
Yes.
Brookmaster.
The
sign.
gates, yeah. And I have them all recorded.
That's
on-
okay, just as long as we know where the locations are.
Sure.
And what do we ask for those lift mounts? What do we ask for those gates? Surplus.
We haven't put them up yet. I'm gonna take a look and see what the average going rate is before I post them. And I'm in the process of getting that GovDeals. I'm in the approval process with govdeals.org. We've already applied for it. However, once you put your application in, it has to be approved and they have to look at everything before they allow you to start posting items for sale.
Are they working gates?
One is working, one arm does not work. It was damaged during the hurricane. So, and we're going to be selling them as is, and that will be noted in the description that it is one of the arms is working and the other is the motor has been affected by the
Well,
hurricane.
the gearbox.
The gearbox.
When are those gonna be up?
They should be up within the next week or two.
Thank you.
Now,
You're
Mike,
welcome.
Mike, you said some of the electronics from the old gates are used in the new gates.
Yes.
So they are not completely.
Yeah, they don't have all their electronics, and they are the boxes themselves are cracked. So there's some welding and things that need to be done there. So that's the, so one gate
Are
is
you
probably
aware of that?
salvageable to the other one.
That the electronics are not all there.
Yes.
One out of two.
Okay.
Mickey.
So these stop signs can't be repurposed? There's 11 stop signs.
Right, no, they're just, some of them, what it is some of them, they're not only bent, but they're obsolete. Okay, they changed some codes, and the newer stop signs have some reflective ability. But because they're the way they're bent, unless you want the place to look really ratty, you better replace it.
Steel or aluminum?
Aluminum.
All right, so do we have I'm sorry, I had interrupted the minutes. So we have John, you approved the minutes, and Jennifer second?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and at this time, I'd like to approve the April 30th, 2023 financial report and the March 31, 2023 bank statements, the April 30th, 2023 bank statements, the May 31st, 2023 bills and financial report as of 5/15/2023. Those in favor say aye.
I make a motion to approve all the financial statements from the April 30th meeting and 5/31 and 5/15 bills.
Second. A second?
Second.
Okay. Anyone opposed?
Your second, Jen?
Yep, a second.
We have to technically say all in favor, aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye, aye,
Aye. Hey, it's my first night being the chair. All right, contracts. Canal and perimeter road cleaning, roadway trimming, culvert cleaning, auditor.
We have two proposals for the roadside maintenance work. We have been desperately seeking a third. Does anybody know anybody that's in the business of cleaning roadside swales? If you have a recommendation, please forward them to me and I'll pursue them.
Okay.
I have two I'll get to you.
If you've got two,
Some potential, you're talking about the culverts, having those.
culverts and the ditches.
Okay.
So this is
Come
the
up
cleaning of the pipes and
Correct.
the
The
swales.
pipes and the swales.
I have two names I'll
This is
forward
what
to
you
you.
emailed.
Please do.
Okay.
I don't know.
Our well has run dry.
Okay.
Everybody we've dealt with previously that we have confidence in, and everybody's busy. But we did get two numbers, but we'd like to get a third.
Okay.
Or fourth.
I can talk to you about that. I have it here. But anyway, I spoke with
Is
Lee
this Michigan?
from Lee County,
Mhm.
the woman that did the MS4 inspection with us. And I sent her the email. She said, remind me, I'll get you a list of known
Okay.
contractors.
Approved vendors.
Yes, approved vendors. And she has not replied. I'm making a note that
Pay
I'm
her
going to
tomorrow again, yeah.
ping her again. Okay?
Okay, so Ron, are you using the RFP that was provided by Richard for your bids?
We will get that RFP to them for the contract.
Is that
The only,
We'll,
wait.
we'll talk about it.
The only RFPs I've seen is mowing, tree trimming, auditor, engineering. So if there's another one specifically to swale and pipe cleaning, I'd like to see it.
I don't know that there is.
It's gotta be enough where the scope of work says specifically what they're supposed to do. A lot of the other stuff could be the same, I assume.
Yes, sir. And so, in some instances under state law, we have to do a competitive selection process. In other instances under your manual, we have to do a competitive selection process. So, I can help everyone understand exactly what level of competitive selection processing we have to do for the different contracts. Some of the contracts being a more expensive scope of work will require more competitive selection activities under your manual and under state law both. So I can help with that when you get to the place where you're ready to make all those decisions. The engineer and I can probably.
Ron, do we have the basic scope of work that we're sending these people for the swale and pipe cleaning? Okay.
So we can attend that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fine.
So you're,
So my question is, I think, does any board action have to occur on this agenda item, or was that action already approved to release the request for, to do the competitive selection for these services?
No
Has
action
any
been
action been taken?
We have
Okay.
not, as far as I know, we have not approved a release. We're just collecting names now, correct?
That's my understanding of what I've
Yeah,
heard.
that's my understanding too. So we're gonna make a vote today to say, once we get 3, we're gonna
Well,
put them out to bid?
so it could go, so you would release, normally the way the process works is you have the request either for qualifications or proposals or bids, whatever process that you're using. You have that, you put it on the website, you pick a date for closeout, for closure of the response time. Then, if there is anyone you want to send that document to, anybody who provides the services that you know about, like the 3 that you're mentioning or 4 that you mentioned, you would send them a copy of that RFQ document and say, here it is, here's the deadline to respond if you want to. That's how it works. And you would also put it on the website so that anybody, not only those 3 or 4, but anyone who is interested could respond to the request for proposals or qualifications or whatever you have. So we'll get that done and get it all straight and make sure if the board wants to take action to say the motion would be to release the competitive selection processes on all those functions that you want to have done, whatever they are, then we can get the detail done so that they get released and done legally under the
So
law.
my question to Ron is, the 2 you're talking so far, what have they seen to even show an interest that they would bid?
They have sent us a proposal.
They sent you a proposal based on a verbal discussion, saying, look, we need some people to clean these swales.
Which in some instances may be sufficient, but in other instances may not. So we may need to do the formal written competitive selection process and just let them know that that it's coming and give it to them to respond to.
We were under the impression that this was still being covered somewhat under the emergency authorization that was granted to the chairman back as a response to the Ian. And what we have provided each of the 2 that did provide, or several that have, but the 2 that didn't respond, were the streets of interest and the guidelines of what we want to see done. And they've both come and inspected and reviewed it in the field and based their numbers based upon that inspection.
Well, if we go with that philosophy for now, then why don't we just take Audrey's 2 contacts and get them to bid as well? And keep the 2 that you've given information to, see if they're honest in their proposals. Same street, same everything. But in the meantime, I think we do need it eventually.
On a global,
Once we're out of the FEMA mindset, normal.
on all of that work, yes, sir,
Correct.
going forward.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
so would that work need to be done next year to be considered for the budget? Because we should be asking for RFPs and RFQs prior to the budget period so that we have proposals and we have numbers that are valid for budgeting purposes.
For
For
the
next-
time period beginning October 1,
Right.
2023.
Yeah, 'cause
Correct.
we're not gonna be in FEMA mindset, or God forbid we have another hurricane.
All right.
No. Yeah, so I think we need to err on the side of making it formal.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do too.
yes, and in the past, what was handed out to everyone are the either requests for qualifications or requests for proposals that were previously done for a lot of the different scopes of work. There are several other scopes of work for the swale ditches, swale cleaning, and one other one that I heard mentioned.
The pipe cleaning.
The pipe, yes, that we may not have, although I think I did do a request for proposals for the swale.
Yeah, for swale mowing.
Okay. Anyway, if there are any other scopes that we need to also do a competitive selection on for the time period beginning October 1, 2023, I can put those together. I just need to know what those two are. It sounds like there are two of them. And then we will have all of them done. We can use the date of October 1st, 2023 for the time period, for the contract time period,
Correct.
and go from there.
And we have 4, and we'll have at least 2 more. And then the 4 that we have were sanitized
Yes.
and made very generic with no names, just blank lines and not even a number, just RFQ number, blank line, as a template that will go on the website.
Can be used
for examples, where people say, okay, look at all the stuff they're going to require, insurance, I have to notarize, I have to get an affidavit. Yeah, they're going to be in every RFQ, RFP, here they are.
Right.
Okay. Because that's what's going on the website, is a generic version.
Yes, sir. And yes, sir. And eventually, what will go on the website as well will be the actual hard RFPs or RFQs.
Real bidding opportunities.
The documentation.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Here's a sample. Here's the upcoming RFPs, RFQs that are being offered for bidding opportunities.
Yes.
That's how the website's being set.
And we'll call them samples on
Yeah.
the ones that are the samples, so that they know in advance. But what you're talking about is, for the time period beginning October 1st, we need to do the competitive selection for all the services so that we've got everything in line prior to the budget approval. So,
Okay.
I do have, and I sent it back out in April, the Tuscan and Company contract engagement letter for years 24 through 26. Does that have to go out for competitive bid, or
No.
can we continue on with our existing
Yes.
auditor?
the statutory law on audit services says that you can continue the audit services agreement and extend it if you do so within the term, the existing term of the agreement. Mr. Tuscan or Tuscan and Company has prepared the audit now for, what is it, 2 years? And so this renewal is an amendment of the existing agreement. It's actually a restatement of the existing agreement to extend the term under the request for qualifications that you previously did. And the law authorizes you to approve these if it is the board's desire. The alternative is to go through another request for qualifications process for audit services, which you would normally do if the current auditor was not performing as you believed was appropriate, or if the current auditor retired or resigned, or if you wanted to check to see what the services that others might provide, other auditors might provide. If everyone is happy with Tuscan and Company, then you can extend the current contract for an additional time.
So is that something we need to vote on today? Make a vote that
Okay.
says, let's extend them because we're happy with them so far, and extend that again. Or can we wait till next one? I don't know. I'm asking.
That's why I included it on today's agenda.
Yeah, Tuscan likes to have knowledge as to how many additional audits they are going to do. This extends
3 years.
the current audit that it will be for, the current audit agreement will cover the time period through September 30, 2023. So the audit of this current fiscal year is covered in the existing agreement. This amendment is to extend the agreement for an additional 3 years for the fiscal years that end September 30, 2024, September 30, 2025, and September 30, 2026. There is an opportunity I wrote into the agreement for the district to terminate the agreement as well during that time period. The fees are set fees for those 3 time periods, and they are set at $15,000 for the first of the 3 years, $16,000 for the second of the 3 years, and $17,000 for the third of the 3 years. The terms of this agreement, as I said, are consistent and the same as the terms of the original audit agreement. So essentially what you're doing is agreeing to an extension of the time period and agreeing to the fixed fees for those additional 3 fiscal years.
Chris, could I ask a question then? The previous auditor, what was their annual fees?
He was an independent. He retired. He was charging significantly less, but he was not doing the work.
The detail these guys are.
Yes.
And there have been additional requirements added
That they had
to the
somebody
work.
has to do.
Which is
Yes.
why he retired.
Right. You didn't want to do this
So
anymore.
here's my question, what I would say to Tuscan and Company is, great, we'll lock in for 3 years, but where's the discount? Not the price increase, where's the discount? Because that's 3 years of revenue. And you're repeating the same information. We're not some manufacturing operations that you're pouring through the books and,
Well,
Actually,
actually,
no.
they do have to pour through the books every year to satisfy the state auditor. So they do have to review independently every year's activities. There are some savings in that once they set a lot of the systems up for the review, they don't have to set the systems up again like they did the first year. But
we're already in the second year of them now?
we are in the second.
We did
and
20, it was 2020, 2021, and 2022 we're in the 3rd year.
You're in the 3rd year, so
Yes.
and then you're going to get another 3 years, and the system should be set up in the way they have
What is
their account, so I would ask them for a discount or lock in that price.
if
They want renewal, lock it in.
if that is the desire, then
Ask them. That's
yeah, okay, then we can. I would say probably postpone making a decision
Yeah.
until the April board meeting and see if they have any flexibility in the pricing that they've provided here, which is pretty reasonable compared to what I have seen other agencies paying for audit services. But I don't know what the charges were before, but we can ask Mr. Tuscan. He'll tell us.
My attitude is if you don't ask, you'll never know.
Yes, sir. And if you do ask and you get the thank you, the numbers are the numbers, then you can still make a
That's
decision
fine.
in
It's
April.
okay. I
Right.
understand that.
Right. So we can do that. So it would not be an item for
For
a
next
decision
session.
tonight, and it would be instead continued to the April board meeting. So
Okay, so continuance of the contracts
Yes.
Until which meeting? 'Cause
next
we're
month.
Next month.
Next month.
Okay.
June.
So we're just,
June. Okay, I heard April.
I don't need to put anything down other than we're tabling the,
continue.
Keep on it.
Motion to
Finish
extend
up.
to the month of June.
Okay.
Second that?
Second.
Aye.
There was your vote. It was unanimous. So that's continued to the June board meeting.
And then I'd like to, if you agree, to make a motion to extend the Hurricane Ian damage and resolutions and FEMA's information, because since Jim is the integral portion of that, to the June meeting.
You making a motion to that?
Yeah, make a
Second-
motion.
I second the motion.
Okay, aye. All in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Okay. And then
you want to
the
table that?
employee job description.
You want a second, you want to table
I believe
that?
there's a request to have that.
Yes, ma'am,
extended.
Madam Chair. If
Yes.
I would ask that you continue that item to the June meeting as well,
Right.
when you have a full board Present.
full board present.
Yes, ma'am.
So, a motion
continue
to
it, yes.
extend the employee job description agenda item to the June meeting.
Second motion.
All in favor, aye. Now, are we addressing 9F now, or is that?
Yes, ma'am, that's the next item, the meeting agenda amendment.
So a motion to add the manager report to the June agenda?
Second the motion.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, you're doing more than that.
Yes, ma'am, so you have, the board adopted a manual,
Sorry.
yes, ma'am, to govern a number of different areas of the district's policies and procedures and activities. Beginning on page 38 of that manual, and the board adopted the manual by official action. Beginning on page 38 of the manual at section 11 is the district's policy on meetings of the Board of Supervisors. And on page 38, you adopted the board meeting agenda order of business.
Okay.
So the best motion I can think of to accomplish what you want to accomplish would be a motion to amend the manual at page 78 and the board
Is that
meeting.
38?
That's what I say. I'm sorry. Page 78, boy. I grew your document by 40 pages in just one word. Thank you. And to amend the board meeting agenda order of business, to add an item of manager's report after the treasurer's report. I think that's what you
No, you're doing
That's
it
it.
after
The engineer.
engineer's report.
After the engineer's report. Okay. So that would be the motion, Madam Chair. I think that would accomplish everything for
So
you.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the manual, page 38, section 11, to add the
To amend the
manager's-
board meeting
amend-
agenda.
amend the board meeting agenda to include the manager's report, and also amend the report or the agenda to be after the engineer's report for the manager's report.
I second the motion.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
That manual on the website?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'd like to move to public input.
I got 3 quick questions. When you're doing the swale work, is the intention to clean the swales out to the specification, or what is the swale work?
But I don't want
The soil system is very erratic, up and down. Part of that is maintenance, part of that is old, historic, let's call them historic culverts, the 12 and 15-inch size that were set
we had a problem.
prior to the new size requirement of the 18s. We've been looking at the district as a whole as we go around doing our inspections, looking to determine which is going to be the best approach. Do we set an elevation at strike plane, where we have an elevation at strike plane, where we have an elevation at, say, the south end of any one of those roads, or the north end of any one of those roads? Do we attempt to make it a straight line between those 2 points? Do we try to accommodate the existing pipes, some that are here, some that are here, and the next one's here, and the next one's there, and the next one's here? Do we try to work within those limits? In establishing which is going to be the best way to get water from A to B and create the least amount of puddling and ponding within the roadside swale. What we're looking at is taking the known elevation at strike and the known elevation at the south end and trying to work a straight line between those two. But we're going to have to adjust that as we hit different culverts. Say one's too high right in the middle. Clearly, we don't want to take that straight line to where the ditch is a foot below the pipe. And there's no plans to replace that pipe anytime in the near future. So what we're looking at doing is kind of looking up and down, back and forth, check this pipe, check that pipe, and come up with a flow line that gets us all the way to the bottom of the hill without creating ponding.
So the water moving towards Strike. Right.
At the northern end, we'll probably wind up taking some of that water to Strike as it does. And at the southern end, we'll be taking it and trying to find that break point along each roadway to where we can get the water south and get the water north without, again, creating a lot of tunneling in between.
Well, there's two fixed things. There's the level of the swale at Strike, and then there's the level of the overflow boxes at the canal, right?
Right.
I mean, then,
At the southern end, each of those inlets has a bleeder orifice. There's a bleeder in it.
right.
And so that's the number, that's the elevation we'll be working to. Strike Lane also has those, I believe. If not all, some do. To be able to get that water into those inlets, through the road, under the road to the north side, and then down to the west end. Where they're raised up for purposes of creating retention or detention within that roadside swale. And that was all part of the requirement of the Water Management District in exchange for paving the roads, was providing the water quality treatment in those swales, and that's what that bleeder orifice is for. So there's a estimated volume of water quality treatment in each one of those systems. And we don't want to disrupt that. We don't want to get it too deep. We don't want to create too much ponding. We want water to get to that bleeder orifice so it can ultimately get in the structure and out to either Mariah or up to the Strike Lane system.
Okay. I mean, those bleeder things are often clogged, by the way. So
Pardon?
they're often clogged.
The bleeders, yes, understand
And
that.
I'll tell you, during Ian, like every hour I would go out and try to, I clean it out and then
That's a project we hope to budget for. It's currently on the table for the HMGP litigation
Yeah.
through FEMA.
Yeah.
Just put baffles around all those boxes that will keep the debris, will better keep the debris away from the grate where it clogs it up.
Well, the 4x4 experiment, is that a success or a failure?
The 4x4s do a great job until you get a lot of limbs and debris and stuff that runs right in and clogs your pipe up. So the baffle will do a much better job. They're not quite as aesthetically pleasing as a good old 4x4, but I'm being a little facetious, but they will do a pretty good job of keeping the debris out of the orifice and from clogging the top of the grate.
Okay. But like in front of my house where I have a swale, are those going to be redug to get them lower, or is that's not part of it?
It's going to depend on where the pipes are at. And we're, part of the contractors is we will be looking at as they come in to clean those swales. And the first four that we're looking at are tuck over to Busy Bee. Looking at those scores, what we've got numbers on. The contractor has been advised that they will need to be looking at those elevations and consulting with us, prior to getting out there and actually getting in the way.
Yeah, and Catskill are all different levels. The swales are right, so
They're all different levels, they're up and down. A pipe that's too low is far better than a pipe that's too high, but we've still got to accommodate that pipe that's too high. So, I think the ultimate goal of going with the 18 is sort of force the pipes deeper, which is not a bad thing, not at all.
So do we want water laying in the swales during rainy season?
Because there's the bleeder, the small orifice in the side of the box, you should have standing water in that swale after a rainstorm for up to 24, maybe 48 hours.
But that spillway at Strike and Tuck is where it controls all that. So from my washing thing, so. If that thing is
It's striking.
So
That's an offline treatment system that has no effect on the.
no, if that's closed, the swales on Catskill fill up. If it's open, the swales can't.
All the swales on the south side of Strike from Tuck east all the way to Imperial, connect over to the north side. Now, I may be wrong, but I think the only connection, unless there's one right there underneath your driveway, from that strike lane into that marsh, that wetland.
It's just a concrete culvert.
Yeah, there's a pipe under the road that goes over to the main valve.
And that connects to the, and that's, I'm just not absolutely certain, in any event, even if the swale on the south side of Strike Lane is connected underneath your driveway into the marsh, the primary outfall for that is north underneath Strike Lane and then west into those dry detention areas. That's the primary outfall for all of Strike Lane. Now, some may get to a pipe underneath, like say, your driveway into that planted marsh system. But like I said, I haven't put eyes on that structure.
So what I can tell you is that the water flows towards Strike and then into the filter ponds and then and that's the way the water flows. So that gate at the box coming out of the filter pond into the canal on the cup, that's what controls the water in front of my house over there. Catskill.
Okay.
I'm out there every day and I watch.
Okay, yeah,
Open, watch it, right?
I'm not down it, just now that you brought it up, I don't know that I put eyes on that.
Yeah.
But I will definitely take a look at
Because
that.
it's just when you have a big storm like a hurricane, then it goes the other, then it overflows.
Right, as it builds up, as the system fills up, the primary outfall is back through the dry detention areas, not through that wetland marsh. And I'm not saying it can't come through there, but that gate is usually up higher than everything else, I'm sorry.
No, I want to get through some of the people.
Okay, you had a
Got two
question?
more questions?
Well, so look, did,
With 3 minutes.
I contacted you guys about the wheel.
Hold on a second. I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to move on. But I do
Okay,
have.
okay,
No,
fine.
I want to tell you what had happened. We got a call from you that the kids. I think it was you. I could be wrong.
Right, right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There were kids playing with it.
Right.
So when I went there, I realized the wheel was free. So I removed
Oh.
the wheel and brought it back. I secured it down, just so you know.
As long as you have it.
Yes, and I do have it. I replaced it. I secured it down with a chain so there was less play, so that nobody can come, at least kids anyway. You know, if somebody really wants the wheel, they'll make it happen. But I secured it down with a new padlock to make sure that the kids can't come and play with it. So go ahead, young man. I'm sorry.
I was just going to make a comment on the engineer was talking about the different sizes of pipe. Well, when the different sizes of pipe were put in, they were 12 inches. That's when the people had to pay for the pipe. They were 12 inches. My culvert were larger than that. And a few years back, I came to the board because I have a 12-inch pipe, what we was required. Well, now they're putting an 18-inch, and they put an 18-inch pipe right next to my culvert. And I come in and I said, how's this going to work? You can put a lot of water in the funnel, but when it gets to a small hole, it don't go through. And you can look back in the minutes, and you can see what the engineer said. Oh, it don't matter. Oh, it don't matter. And that was at the board's minutes when y'all were meeting down here at the place down here just before you get to Benito on the right.
It wasn't me that said that.
Was not you.
Okay.
That's why we replaced the engineering firm.
But you cannot tell people that. You know, here I am sitting with an 18-inch culvert within 5 foot of a 12-inch pipe. Like I said,
Preaching to
you
the
know,
choir, right?
I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I still have that problem. Every time it rains, guess where the water goes? Over the road.
One of the things that we're looking at, and it's not really
What's his name?
allowed by the manual just now, and I'll be real brief with this, but
Name?
is to,
Name?
rather than
James
setting
Marshall.
inverts of the pipes together, setting the crown.
Remember, I asked you to get my
Since they haven't done that yet, we're waiting. I'm waiting. I have your note.
And your name again?
James Moss.
Okay.
I'm a troublemaker on these.
No, you're
When you see the cop car coming, you know where they're coming.
The Arkansas hat gave it away.
There you go. Get well.
And behind you had a question?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
John, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, so what's going on Bonitaville? Where the guy tore up the berm at the swell.
We've not gotten a response back from the code enforcement people. I'll follow up again with them tomorrow.
A response from code enforcement for what?
For you're referring to the storage yard up there?
Right?
Right. And, what they do on their property is really not,
Well, what about our road? He's tearing up our road.
we want a team with the code enforcement people on that.
Well, he should be responsible for our road
Understand?
and get all that crap off of our road.
Is it additional material? I haven't been up there this week. Is additional material been put up there?
Not that I've noticed, but I mean, if you've got all kinds of roofing material that came from this gentleman
Mm-hmm.
driving his trailers into a storage lot that's not supposed to be there, I don't know. I'm not really cool about having all this roofing material out on the road.
May I
Last I
ask-
was up there, he looked like he was using that to fill the holes.
It's not his property.
I understand that, but, filling a hole, I look at it a little different than, not that it's okay, he's still gonna account for it, he's still gonna do things to the standard of the district, but.
Okay, so what happens if there's a whole bunch of nails sticking up? And you got some chick riding a horse down there, all of a sudden now it's got a roofing nail stuck in his foot.
Yeah.
And somebody can be liable.
And all of a sudden this horse now kicks that chick into the canal.
Again,
So,
we'll follow up with the city again tomorrow and see if we can't get some action to get them notified.
okay, so what about repairing the road?
That would be part of the solution, is for him to restore it back to where it was prior to.
This is our job, is to take care of the roads and the
May I
canals.
ask, may I ask you a question?
He's talking about your
Technically,
friend
Bonitaville is
on
not
Golden
road.
Eagle.
Right, well,
Yeah.
it's a maintenance
That's what he's
right.
talking about.
Correct,
Never
we're
confused.
still responsible
on
for
all the
that.
tiles.
Yeah.
Just like Mariah, where this guy has put down a whole bunch of stone on the road.
Bonitaville.
Why can he do that?
That may have been done with the permit before us. I have to go back and look. Do you have an address?
Well, you know
It's,
it. I think it's that character that we're talking about.
Well, he had.
David?
If you're talking about the rock that Mr. Gallagher put down on
Sure.
Mariah, he was told to do that by Morris Depew as part of the process for his house permit, right?
Oh, wait a minute, what is
So that was an authorized. That was an authorized.
So the board
Action.
authorized that?
Yep. Well, the engineer did.
Stone, yes,
Well,
I believe.
okay, hold it now. Is the engineer in control of the roads, or is it the board and the engineer combined?
As
Because I'm a
the,
little confused on
you
this.
want to talk about what that? how that
So,
works?
may I ask you a question? I'm sorry, we don't.
Go ahead.
What's your name?
John
John
Kangas.
Kangas.
John Kangas. Which street are you referring to? Do you know what street you're
He's talking about
referring to?
Mariah.
Bonitaville.
Bonita Bill.
Well, now we were just talking about
Okay,
Gallagher.
Mariah and Papillon.
No, you're talking about Mariah and Papillon. Okay.
Both of them.
Okay. I took pictures of a different of a different area earlier in the week, but if you let me know specifically where it is,
But it's not illegal.
I can take a look at it, is my point. So if you let me know where, but you say it's on Papillon and Mariah
Correct.
at the very
You can
end.
get to the very end of Papillon and you make a left. You've got all kinds of loose white stone there that somebody put down. I don't believe that it would be a code situation. And
Is that recently done?
No, that was part of Brad Gallagher's permit for access to his house. That's what was agreed on when the deed was vacated and he was granted access, and he was told that he had to put rock down to secure the roadway.
okay, wasn't there supposed to be a guardrail too and curbing?
No.
I'm not aware of any
No.
guardrail curbing.
Okay.
If he had put a driveway, if he had paved it, then the city would have required the curbing and the guardrail, or the curbing, not the guardrail, but the curbing. If he had actually had to pave it.
Okay, so now we're into the city of the permitting, not the engineer or not the board.
The board grants the engineer certain liberties, but then approves the work that they've required.
The city requires a development order to extend a roadway. So anyone who's working on or building on Mariah or Bonitaville or extending any of the roadways, Amarillo and Rocky that stop at the wetlands?
Rocky's one, yeah.
Rocky's one.
And Amarillo's another.
Yeah.
Anywhere that the road doesn't go all the way through to Bonitaville and Stripe, the city requires that the applicant file for the limited review development order in order to extend the roadway. And they have the city standards that they have to meet. They also have to meet the district standards. And they have to get a permit through the district, but they also have to get a permit through the city as well. So typically we try to cooperate with them on that and coordinate. The city won't issue the final permit until we've issued ours, until we've signed off on it. The city won't issue their development order. So it's getting reviewed by essentially two entities with two separate interests in order to be able to do that roadway work. So I'm assuming that the rock was, since the district approved it with the previous engineer, I'm gonna have to assume that the city also reviewed and approved that. I know we did something similar at Bonitaville, and I think it was Dietz. We refer to it as the she shed.
Yeah, she said.
That's Claire. Claire.
If you go up there, the roadway was extended by permit of the city and by permit of the district to reach the residents. But then the resident was desirous to extend the road further so that she would have a stabilized access to her she shed. Since it wasn't going to a residence, but the district made the determination, this was just about the time we were coming on board. We didn't start the process, but we did finish the process, that would allow her to not pave the road, but simply go in and stabilize it with base material and then cover it up with 57 stone. So there's a suitable roadway should the fire department have to get back there to do, emergency services or on the she shed. So it's kind of a doubling up, but that's an instance where you've got a paved road that was approved by the city and by the district, and then an unpaved stabilized surface that was approved by both entities as well. So,
All right, so anything else?
She got a
So,
I'm confused. What's the problem with putting gravel on a unpaved road?
It's on an unpaved road.
Gallagher's, you're talking about Gallagher's putting rock on the road. What's the problem with that?
It's unpaved.
what?
his situation's a little different.
Well,
Am I correct?
again, that was one we came
Yeah,
out
his
of.
situation's a little different, but the way his property access is to connect it to the main road.
Right. But,
The-
so you.
Go ahead, Mr. Franklin, can you please address?
I'll try.
Okay, thank you.
We do this
Are we talking
every
about
other
the
month.
roofing material?
No,
No,
we're talking
this is-
about the gravel,
Gravel for
The
business.
57 stone on Papillon?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering who approved it?
Papillon,
Because
Go
I
ahead,
think
Mr.
there
Franklin.
was
But-
another one up on
Let's let Mr.
Bonitaville who
Pringle
was,
address it.
had to go down and put curb and gutter
right.
on there. So why isn't that being done on that end?
When it's paved, when it becomes paved, you'll find, we're reviewing one right now down at Mariah and not Papillon.
Catskill?
Hmm?
Catskill?
Maybe Pinson,
Or
Pinson?
Vincent, yeah.
Maybe at Pinson and Mariah, where their residential access is going to be off of Mariah. And they are extending the roadway, so they're actually paving the portions of Mariah down to pass their driveway, to the extent where an emergency vehicle could get in, turn, and make a turnaround in their driveway and get out of the dead end there. That will have guardrail, that will have pavement. So it'll be, that's on its way back to the city now, so I'm not sure when they'll be starting on that, but that's been reviewed, and I believe we've signed off on it as approving construction on that. But that would just be an example of where it's actually surfaced asphalt.
So the Gallagher gravel's okay, but I'm still confused by it.
I can
Mr.
answer
Pringle's going
that.
to address that.
We need to go back.
I'll take care of that. I'll take care of that. So the district's rules and regulations require a property owner to extend the pavement. No, let me back up. The district's rules and regulations say driveway connections are supposed to be to a paved road. The district's rules and regulations say that if you want a driveway connection to a district roadway that is not paved, then you have to extend the pavement to where you want to connect to the roadway. That's what the district's rules and regulations say. And that's why this example that was just described is occurring, because that's what the district's rules and regulations say is supposed to occur. Mr. Gallagher, some time ago, requested special permission from the district to use Mariah Lane as his roadway access without paving Mariah Lane. The argument that he made was that there was a wetland on his area right at the corner of the paved road, because the district first said to him, well, no, sir, just connect to the paved road, put your driveway connection there, and run your driveway on your property, not on Mariah Lane, but on your property. And his response was that will require substantial impact of a wetlands area, and the district is about preserving and protecting water quality, and that would not be consistent with the district's goals of protecting water quality in the wetland area. And so the board said, we will give you, Mr. Gallagher, special permission to use Mariah Lane for your driveway connection point without first having to pave Mariah Lane. That's how it happened. That's why Mr. Gallagher's use is different. The board approved that special permission for Mr. Gallagher to use that roadway that way.
Good.
That
It
rule
sounded like you were
wasn't
saying it
in
wasn't legal. It sounded like they were saying it wasn't legal.
Well, that's why I stepped in.
So
It kind
that
of
rule
helps.
wasn't in place at the time.
The rule.
The paving rule wasn't in place when he got permission to put the gravel down.
Yeah, it
The
was.
paving rule was in place at the time. Yes, sir, it was. You can say whatever you want to. I have read the rule many, many times. There were many occasions previously, prior to Mr. Gallagher coming along, where that rule was imposed and where others, Mr. Chetty was one, what was the
she-shirt
other
lady.
guy across the street from him? Mr. Hooch?
Castor. The
Mr.
she-shirt-
Castor was another,
The she-shirt
where,
lady.
and several others where pavement was extended to a driveway connection point. So that's the standard rule of the district. That's the rule and regulation of the district.
So Mr. Gallagher's all right then.
Mr. Gallagher is all right with regard to the board's approval to let him use that roadway without paving it first. That part is all right, yes, sir.
So what's the guardrail rule now? That's a new one, isn't it?
You've had for 3 minutes.
I'm not sure how new that is. It's been there ever since I've been here.
But there's no
Which is, it's
guardrail
not
either.
that long, but because of the, I understand why it's there, you have an option of putting in an F-type curb,
Thank you. for
stand-up
explaining.
curb, and or a metal guardrail. And that's simply to protect people from coming around that corner
Not to-
and driving off into the canal.
Overreach.
Now, how new that is, I don't know. It was here, it was the standard when we came on board as district engineers, and we supported it. So,
Okay.
All
Supervisor comments?
Yep, supervisor comments, would like to,
All right, so
supervisor discussion.
the only thing I would like to do is pass out these reports. You already have in your packets the email that John had provided everyone. And I apologize, but the original report that I provided you is unreadable. So I made it bigger.
Okay.
Yay.
And then I also added last year's budget. I'm including last year's budget so that you would have a comparison to look at.
Thank you, dear.
Okay, let's count it down.
I'm gonna give you one. And Michelle, I'll give you one also so that you all, because Ron, we're gonna need numbers from you for your budget year, and Richard, we're gonna need some information from you for your budget, which you anticipate will be used for next year, for when we have our discussions. John, did you want to talk about your email at all, or did you want just to have everybody take a look at it, think about it over the next month, and then bring their questions to the June meeting?
Regarding adding emails.
No, the email you sent regarding the budget, your thoughts on the budget.
I don't remember. I know the email. I don't have it memorized in my
I know.
You can save them all. That would be a good thing to do, is just save them all. Let's bring them up at the next board meeting. And in the meantime, you can ask any questions or have any conversation with Miss Chris. That's a good thing.
All right.
All right, anything else to discuss? All right, so if there are no objections, we will adjourn the meeting.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
So there was a motion made to adjourn and a
Yes,
second.
second motion.
Thank you.
Aye.
There you go.
Jennifer, I wanted to talk for another hour, please.
No, 3 minutes.
after we